Next item is the final adoption of the 2023 budgets. For adoption, the 2023 budgets inclusive of the operating funds budget, expenditures totaling $59,029,827. Capital project funds, expenditures totaling $9,598,825. Special funds budget, expenditures totaling $7,721,898.
Motion adopted.
Second.
Discussion. My question for my fellow commissioners here is we are now looking at 3 million plus deficit this coming year, taking the fund balance down even further from a beginning balance of just over 8 million to less than $5 million. You saw the letter that came in, our increase on our projected contribution to our retirement system. That could go up, could go down, but that, right there, we're looking at $400,000. I am really concerned with not improving or approving at least $500,000, which I suggested last year already. My concern is what are you gonna do next year if we're already down to that $4+ million and you continue to spend down $3+ more million operating at a deficit? You can only do it so long. My projecting for next year is you'll have to increase taxes 2 mils plus to make up what you are spending annually. If we do not do an increase, we'll be facing that large increase in millage, or you could spend down that fund balance of $4 million roughly and have to take out tax anticipation notes come next January or the following January if we do not do something to control this. I am really disappointed in my fellow commissioners here for not having the foresight to see what we're approving here. We're looking at a $800,000 set aside for salary increases. A $500,000 wouldn't even cover that. Barely, just barely maybe, but won't even cover that. What happens next year at 8 million or at 800,000? You cannot keep going without doing something. You're just gonna kill the taxpayers in the long run or put the shaft to any future boards of commissioners.
Well, then let me interject. It does not seem to have been a concern in 2012 or 2019. In 2012, the Board of Commissioners, of which you were a member, increased taxes 48.7%. In 2019, just after the election, the Board of Commissioners, Commissioner, you were a member, raised taxes 19.5% or 2 mils. So therefore, historically, there appears to be a precedence for those types of increases. I have no doubt in myself, my ability to assume responsibility should a future tax increase be absolutely necessary. It isn't absolutely necessary now. I agree with Commissioner Arner that we are in a good situation, not a great situation, but we're in a sufficient financial situation that we can forego any notable increase in taxes this year. Next year, it's going to be a hard decision, mostly for those of us who are true fiscal conservatives. And we're all going to have to tighten our buckles, or there is a good possibility that a tax increase would be proposed, but it is not necessary this year.
And what's in the budget, like right now, or for next year, what we cut out on unnecessary things is where we got to today to not have the tax increase. And like I said, if we have to cross that next year, but I always said, you don't raise taxes because you can, you raise taxes if it's needed. You know, and that's where I stand. I've always said that, and I think we're all right this year, and that's another road we're gonna have to cross next year when we get there. And this taxing people every year does not work, I don't think, for the taxpayers. And we always talk about that everybody needs an increase. Well, nobody looks at the taxpayer. Yeah, everybody wants, but does anybody look at the taxpayer that's paying the bill? they're the ones that pay the bill. When I get somebody to come in and do some kind of work at my house, they up the bill. That's their business. It's a little bit different when you're in the private sector and your money comes from the taxpayers.
Let me point out, in those years, look at the fund balances at the time, and what had to be done to keep this county operating. Nobody wants to do that. I sure as hell didn't want to do it. But sometimes you have to make that decision. And if that decision wouldn't have been made, you would be at raising those taxes now as well. So don't give me that line of loading. You have to plan ahead. You cannot keep spending on the fund balance like you have over 2 million this year and projected at almost 4 million next year. It just increase it 1/2 mil would at least cover the salary increases, or almost cover the salary increases this year.
Oh, we have an excessive carryover, and I discussed this 3 weeks ago when we had our meeting. Talk about pay increases. One commissioner has consistently said across the board increases were not in the best interest of the county residents or taxpayers. Other individuals voted for consistent salary increases above consumer price index numbers without any consideration of true merit, because there isn't, unfortunately, a merit-based system for pay here in Carbon County. The system is broke when it comes to evaluations, so you can't objectively assess merit here in Carbon County. Also, I think it's important, should motion 22672 pass, which we'll be voting on here shortly, individuals who desire to continue in county government will be held accountable for the first time, likely in county history, for taxation, because the public will be able to go to the polls, the general election, and make a better informed decision on the intent of those individuals running or who seek re-election in regards to taxation.
The disadvantage of that, now, at first, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
But we afforded, the previous Board of Commissioners afforded the opportunity to you and to Mr. Arner here to sit in on those salary board meetings and budget meetings and to help you in that decision. Phil, unfortunately, the election, if we do it before, that means those getting elected will not have that opportunity for the newly elected to really participate in the process or have a full understanding of what is going on.
I want to remind the public, 6 January 2020, in this room, a motion was made to reopen the budget, which we had the legal authority to do, right? I made that motion. I had it put on the agenda. That budget was not reopened, and then therefore, without due diligence, due assessment by this current seated board, the tax increase that was proposed by the previous board and approved went forward. We had an opportunity even back in 2020 to make a difference. And we had insight into the budget, thankfully, for the transition that took place, yet failed to take advantage of that opportunity to really do a deep dive on the budget. And just as I spoke to 3 weeks ago, $1.3 million in the operating budget is fluff. It's fat. Over $800,000 over $80,000 in budgets. It's, again, budget money, which was just not being utilized. We could have had a much slender budget if we would have taken action starting back on January 6th in 2020. Therefore, right, things are coming home to roost now, and this is where we are. And again, there's no doubt we're in a situation where a tax increase does not have to be encumbered upon the residents of Carbon County at this time.
Again, as you say, the over budget, that was carried over into the new budget. You've taken that out there, and we're still facing roughly a $3.8 million deficit. So how did that help?
We would have been in a more appropriate situation, understanding the fiscal situation of the county. We had excessive surpluses over these years. Yeah, you always need a buffer, but again, the numbers clearly show our carryover has been excessive. Let's get it down to a realistic number and a number that isn't going to continue to burden the taxpayer.
Well, I just wanna warn you, and, you don't know what is gonna happen in 2023, as, like, we had the huge inflation, et cetera, that occurred. We didn't expect to spend over $1 million on the roof and air conditioning in this building. What would it cost to replace the roof in the courthouse? Ballpark.
I have no idea. I'm not
That's
the
what I
person
mean.
that's in charge of doing this. And again, we go back to this, we got companies coming in here that I'm still been asking for numbers and I still don't get them. So how are you supposed to make a definite, like even like these projects that are going next year? These projects that we budgeted for, are they even gonna happen next year? I've been sitting waiting for answers for almost a year already. Is it gonna be another year?
Just wanna point out that those are the things that we have to keep a fund balance for the unexpected. We don't know what's gonna happen. The court system, as the people in the courts and a lot of the offices will tell you, how their caseloads are going up. We heard from children and youth yesterday about how their cases are the highest in the state for 6 class counties for reports coming in, at 40 a month now, or is that 40 a week? Yeah, 40 a week. So, you know, the county and the court cases, we have a couple of murder trials coming up in the near future. And this takes a lot more time, effort, personnel, unfortunately, a lot of other expenses. So I just feel that we're taking too much of the fund balance down.
I wanna, one correction I wanna make, I stated 80,000, it was 800,000 of salary surplus on average. I'll also mention, and I brought this up numerous times in the first 2 years, one of the problems with county government is, right, we often don't take best practices from private business. I brought this up, right? We have a 1-year budget. We have no budget forecasting. Any legitimate company, what do? They forecast out 2 or 3 years. The majority of our budget items can be forecasted out for multiple years. The only area which is a little challenging really becomes the contingency. But the majority of our budget could be forecasted out for 3 to 5 years and then adjusted as you go into the actual year. So again, a shortcoming in our own process here in county government.
Well, that's what I'm looking at, those future years and forecasting what we're gonna have to do if we don't have slight increases now.
I challenged the controller to come up with a forecasting process in consultation with Jeff, our consultant, so that in the future, we can be looking out 3 to 5 years and anticipating tax increases, because inevitably they're going to come. So let the public, let us know, the taxpayer, when we can expect them. And hopefully, they won't come to that, or we can take actions to prevent them. But at least individuals, just like when you plan your annual budget at home, or long-term budget, you can go ahead and fit that into your plan. We don't do that in county government. It's a significant shortcoming in the fiscal realm.
Okay.
Good,
Yeah.
good, yeah, good.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
No,
For adoption, budget resolution number 22037.
Motion adopt.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
yes.
Mr. Notstein?
there was no increase, correct, because of the capital projects? Or what was the increase, Jeff?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we haven't,
Yeah, no proposed increase on the tax resolution, correct? Right,
no,
yeah.
so, but the expenditures, will they meet without growing from the fund balance? That's my question.
Your general fund is budgeted about 3.4 million short.
Sure, but any of that funds going to the capital projects is what I'm asking.
No, the capital project fund already has their money, there's nothing going to the general.
Okay, so that money can vote yes on.
Okay. Next item is resolution number 22038, the tax levy resolution.
Move to adopt.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
No,
No. Yeah,